Oh, spooky day, everyone. This is Bern.
And this is Rye.
And you're listening to the Bodacious Rant with Bern Ry.
That was a little premature scream. How's your week been, my friend?
It's been pretty good. Pretty good.
I'm gonna say
Watched
that
a lot. I watched a lot of stuff.
we will get into that, but I just want to say shout out to the LA Dodgers for finally winning a
Oh my God.
series.
No more choking anymore or being cheated. It
Uh,
feels so good.
Okay, I mean, how many times have they gone to the World Series in the last few years? Like four or three? I think it's all
Uh,
been all 4 years they've gone, right? The last 4 years?
less three, I believe. Two
Okay,
or
they
three.
got Okay, they got cheated on one, but yes, no more cheating
Yes.
and choking after this. That is it. That is it.
Yep, the Lakers won, the Dodgers won. It's a good time to be an LA native. Not gonna lie.
LA is bringing home two championships at the end of 2020. Those are the silver linings so far this
My
year.
Chargers are gonna bring the next one. No, that's not. It's
Screw
never
your
gonna happen.
Chargers. That's all Niner country from here. Thank you very much. You take that crap out of my house. You get out of here with this.
You are from SoCal, rooting for a NorCal team. How does
My
that make
father grew up
sense?
in NorCal, so you take your stupid negativity and your Charger self all the way back to San Diego because that's where
Okay,
they took you.
San Diego.
You stay classy, San. No, no. I love at the end just the go fuck yourself, San Diego. It's
Oh
like
no!
everybody. Yet Ron just completely skipped over the just do 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 do.
I
Nice work,
have to
everyone.
fire. I have to fire you.
Well, I gotta fire you. Bing bong bong. You're fired, Ed.
It's like, dude, you did not just hear what you said, did you?
I don't know why I love that so much, just because it's one of it's just the idea that he read it on the teleprompter, so he thought it was fine. Like it's no big deal, but it's like, dude,
Yeah, he reads everything, everything.
you don't get it, do you? Anyways, now let's get back into it for
Well, let's get back to
today's.
brass tacks.
Yes, let's get down to the text. So, what there have been some recent movies out, specifically Borat, the subsequent film, and the long title that I can't remember for the life of
It
me.
is way too long a time. I just call it Borat subsequent movie film.
Yeah, let's just stick with that. Let's start off with that one. How I finally just saw the first Borat the other night. It was hilarious.
Yes.
Very disturbing, and like I just kept thinking like Sacha Baron Cohen is the biggest a-hole possible. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but majority like his mockumentary films, nobody really knows who he is, right? Like nobody knows what's going on. It's all improv
Correct.
essentially.
Correct. Yeah, he's playing a character and they're unaware that, basically the joke's on them. Like they have no idea what he's gonna do or what he's gonna say.
Good God, it's just that's why I kept thinking about that because I've seen Bruno like many years ago, so I've never gotten around to see Borat, but now I have, so I could take that guilt away from me. But how is the second one? Is it as good as everyone is saying, or would you say it was nothing special?
I will say that I enjoyed it just as much as they did the first Borat movie. Really funny. I would think if I had to say if one was funnier than the other, I would still say maybe the first one's a little funnier. But the second one works better as a movie. Like the narrative through line in this one, it was a little bit better in my opinion, and especially the introduction of his daughter was absolutely fantastic.
Okay, because the way the first one ended, I gotta watch the second one. I know I should have seen it, but I've just had a long week so far. But I will definitely have to catch up and see that. So, would you recommend it?
Yes, absolutely. I would absolutely recommend this movie. If anything, just for Maria Bakalova, who plays his daughter. She is the star of this movie and is absolutely fantastic and hilarious and completely unexpected and out of nowhere. So if I had to say watch this movie, watch it because of her, because she is excellent.
Fantastic. I will definitely, like I said, I will definitely watch that soon because they're both those movies are on Amazon. So if you're like myself and never seen it before, either Borat, that's the place to go see, especially if you have Amazon Prime. Now there was another one you wanted to talk about, right? It was a Netflix film. Remind me the name again.
Yeah, so the movie is called The Trial of the Chicago Seven. It is Aaron Sorkin's new movie. If
Okay.
you don't know who he is, he's the one who wrote one of your favorite movies, A Few Good Men. Is that what it's called?
It is one of my favorites,
Yes.
strictly just because Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise are in their prime in those eras, in those days.
Yes. Yes, well he wrote that and he wrote, The West Wing for HBO. He's done the script for The Social Network and Moneyball, and he just like started directing recently with the movie Molly's Game, and this is his second directorial effort.
Fantastic. Okay. I haven't heard a lot about it. I know you've told me before, and I need to watch it. But give me a refresher. Who's in it? And for those who don't know or haven't heard of this movie on Netflix either.
Okay, so the basic premise is, it's based on a real life event in 1968 when these like seven different people from different groups got put on trial because of a riot that ensued during one of the, I believe it was the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in 1968. So these seven different people who opposed the Vietnam War at the time were brought together and tried for supposedly inciting a riot or crossing state lines and inciting violence, which we all know was not true because of the actual court case that happened. But I mean, again, Aaron Sorkin just knows how to write a courtroom drama. If you liked A Few Good Men, which you do, I think you'll really enjoy this movie. It has fantastic performances, especially by, man, such a stacked cast. Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen's actually in this one too. So since we're talking about him, he's
Oh,
in this one in a more dramatic role, which is pretty great. And then you have Yahya Abdul Mateen the second, Black Manta, and he's also in the Watchmen series, and he was in the Get Down.
and he's in the upcoming Candyman movie.
Exactly, yeah. He's also in the coming Candyman movie, and Mark Rylance is also in it, who's always fantastic in everything he does.
Is that the guy from Perry Mason on HBO? And he was in the Americans show. That's him, right?
No, no, no. Mark Rylance is the one that was in Bridge of Spies and Dunkirk. He and
Oh, Ready Player One.
yes, yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. That's who it was. Okay. That he is a great actor from what I've seen.
Hmm.
So I like him.
And the list goes on, man. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in it, and he's great. Frank Langella's in it, and he's great. Again, just like across the board, just a fantastic cast. Michael Keaton's in it too. So it's like it's a pretty stacked cast for this movie, and they're all fantastic.
I hate to say it. Honestly, no, I don't hate to say it. If Keaton's in something in recent years, it's most likely going to be good, with the exception of Need for Speed. He was the highlight of it, but that movie was whatever.
I would say Need for Speed was probably before his like Keaton Renaissance. I would say it was before he started coming out in all these really funny movies like The Other Guys or coming
No,
out
this
in
was actually it was after the other guys, so it was like right after he started kind of becoming in movies again. But
yeah.
this is his only dud so far, at least that I can think off the top of my head. By the way, I love Michael Keaton regardless of what he
Oh, he's
does.
great.
So okay, well now I forgot to ask you for this, but I'm going to ask you for both. Would you say these are both these films are either for like their niche like communities, like their niche fans? Like one would have to be a fan of Sacha Baron Cohen for Borat, and the other would just have to be really into a drama, or do you think they're pretty good to just pick up whenever? You know what I mean?
If I would have to say that maybe for Borat, it's a little bit more of a niche thing since, comedy is really subjective and what one person finds funny, another person might not find funny. So maybe like if you were someone who watched the first Borat movie and didn't really like it, I don't really think there's anything in this one that would change your mind too much since it's a little bit more of the same in terms of style of comedy. So to that one, I would recommend to people who are fans of the first movie for sure. And for Trial of Chicago 7, I would say anyone who really likes courtroom dramas or, movies based on true stories or someone who's interested in, I guess, politics and stuff like that, I would say that this movie is probably one you want to check out.
Okay, so one's definitely if you're a Sacha Baron Cohen fan, go check it out. And another one is basically if you're in the mood for a great drama, all around drama, go definitely watch it, right?
Yeah, yeah, really well written drama too. Again, Aaron Sorkin is a master of dialogue, so there isn't a boring moment in these movies.
You know, that's the thing too, before we continue on with tonight's topic, is that The Social Network I saw in like high school. So, and before that, like I've always been an action junkie when it comes to movies. I'll watch everything action just because it's that it entertains me the most. You know, you have fun with it. It's stuff you don't necessarily see every day in your life. But The Social Network, again, the way he wrote that and the dialogue, like you said, behind it was fantastic. He every word that a character said in his movies or an actor, it's relevant to the story. Kind of like, do you ever see Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt?
I have not seen that one now.
I gotta rewatch it, but from what I remember, I couldn't get into it just because there was so much dialogue that had nothing to do with anything. It was worthless dialogue. I remember even a girl in my screenwriting, like TV screenwriting class, she and I were talking about that, and we went from Sons of Anarchy to talk about the last night's episode, and then talking about it's useless dialogue, and she's like, exactly. I thought, oh, I feel special. Someone agrees with me there.
Yeah, dialogue is one of the hardest things to nail in movies, especially because you can either be too wordy or you can be not wordy enough. You know, either giving people too much that doesn't matter, or you're not giving them enough to express what the characters are saying. So, dialogue is always really hard to get right.
The Hateful Eight.
I stand by that movie. You cannot get me to besmirch the name of Tarantino. That's not one of his better movies, but I still really
I
enjoyed that
will
movie,
be
especially
certain.
the dialogue.
It bored me to death, but I love his other movies, especially Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which has actually been, I think, one of his more divisive films of late. Just because a lot of like myself, I could watch that. That movie has the most rewatchability out of all his movies, in my opinion. And I know some people just thought it fell flat for them and all this and that. And I thought I loved it. It was a culmination of all his movies rolled into one just simple, stupid story.
Hmm.
Stupid
It's
just
all like I
because
said.
stupid just because of how Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio were together in that movie. Like it was such a great buddy dramedy.
Definitely. And it also just it's all building up to the ending. So if you don't stick around to the ending, then you don't get that awesome payoff for this movie. Which again, it's just all one big build up to the last scene.
Oh my god, yes. But let's go on. Thank you, Bern, for those two reviews. I will definitely have to check that out. And ladies and gentlemen, please check that out. Netflix's Trial of the Chicago Seven and Amazon Prime's Borat: The Subsequent Movie Film.
Yes. And in terms of ratings, I give them both 4 out of 5.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started with tonight. So, last episode, we talked about movies that are not so scary. For those who are into entry level horror, who love Halloween but maybe don't like getting scared that much, because I know that's a bit of an oxymoron. Trust me, I was like that for the longest time. But then once I went to my first horror nights, I am all about getting scared. Like it is nothing to me now. So yeah,
I've
just
only been to one horror night and it was pretty fun. I hate getting scared, but it was still fun.
I loved it. The first maze I ever did at Horror Nights was the La Llorona maze, and that was my first introduction to that story. So that one really made me just love that, like Hispanic folklore a little bit more, or like Latino folklore. I'm not quite sure if that's correct, but you get my gist.
I do understand what you mean. Yes, it is a story that originated in, Latino culture or
And
Hispanic culture, I should say.
I'm not 100% sure. I just don't want to offend anybody by saying the wrong thing, but that's besides the point. The point is tonight we are going to talk about some of our movies that are scary, gory, or just downright fun to watch on Halloween that are definitely more for adults this time around. Last time we were kind of talking about for all ages, kid friendly, especially for those who have kids or spend a lot of time with kids. We're definitely going to get into the bit of a nitty gritty this time.
Oh
Are you
yeah, leave your
are you
kids
ready,
at home
bro?
for this one.
Yes,
Do not bring them to these movies.
leave him at home or take him trick or treating and keep him away from these movies.
Just give them enough candy to put them in a coma, and then you can watch these movies.
Now, I'm not saying trick or treating this year, but you know what? To each his own. Do what you will. Have some candy. Relax.
Exactly. I just bought a big Walmart bag of candy and it's all mine. I ain't giving it to no one.
I'm gonna come for it. I'm just gonna take the bag. So
It's
good
like, oh,
luck.
are you gonna hand out candy? No, these are all for me. Oh gosh,
No, get your own. I paid for it. Pay for your own. you,
these are mine.
you got arms and legs. Get your own. Anyways, shall I kick this off, or would you like to start?
You go ahead and do the honors, man. What is one of your favorite Halloween movies?
Well, every year, the first one I think I would like to start that really gets me in the mood and gets me excited for horror is going to be Dawn of the Dead, which I actually have on right now, the James Gunn version.
Oh my god, that was on my list too. That's oh
Oh,
yes,
there we go. We know what we're
the
talking about.
synergy.
Oh man, we're just geniuses. I think we're like Stephen Hawking and Bill Nye the Science Guy.
It's just great minds think alike. It's just that's what happens.
Exactly. And the actually 2000, yeah, it came out in 2004. James Gunn wrote it, but I don't think he directed it, correct?
No, James Gunn wrote the script and Zack
Oh,
Snyder directed the
Zack
movie.
Snyder. I just got through the credits, which one of the reasons why I love it so much is just that after Sarah Paulson crashes her car in the beginning of the movie, just that whole montage of news clips and like almost like phone footage of the whole zombie apocalypse and its beginnings with Johnny Cash's "The Man Comes Around." It's for horror, it's one of the best intros. Kind of
Yeah.
like Watchmen with Bob Dylan's the times are changing.
Yeah, if I mean a lot of people have their criticisms of Zack Snyder and all that, but what I bet what they cannot say is this guy knows how to start a damn movie. All his beginnings of the movies are always like fantastic and just grip you from the beginning, and this one is no exception. Just the first few minutes of this movie is insane.
Absolutely. And again, as much as I used to criticize Zack Snyder's work, he has one of the best cinematic eyes around. Like every one of his movies, even if they're not that great or you just don't care for it, you cannot argue that he doesn't know how to really shoot a scene. Every scene has builds either tension or sets a precedent, not president. Oh my god, I'm like that SNL skit. Sets a precedent for what's going to happen next. Like right now, it's Sarah Paulson and Ving Rhames walking down this, bridge tunnel thing in the middle of a park, and it's quiet, but they just got shot at, and it's like if I was in the theater, I would just be like, oh shoot, okay, like okay, we kind of know that anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, oh my gosh, Dawn of the Dead. What more can I say about it? Like the fact that they were able to remake a classic, George Romero's classic movie from way back in the day, and spin it in a whole new, more modern, at least in 2004 terms, a more modern setting. It's just fantastic. I mean, I can't really say anything, but it's my favorite zombie movie easily.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that. There hasn't the only other exception I will say, even though it's more of a vampire movie, is I Am Legend. Just that idea that the end of the world is happened and there's like hordes of monsters out there. Dawn of the Dead has just nailed down that zombie genre where to me, I watch this, it never gets old with these zombies, if you get what I mean. And every actor does such a great job. No, they're all pretty unknown for the most part, which is kind of why I like it a little more. That they're not
At
all,
least for the time, I would say, yeah.
yeah,
I did not know who any of them were when it came out. I mean, obviously, people like Ty Burrell, became famous a lot later with Modern Family. I had no
it
idea who he was at the time, though.
it still gets me that Ty Burrell was the biggest a-hole in this
Yeah,
movie, but he's Phil
such a
Dunphy.
different, such a different character than what he's been lately.
Oh my gosh. And honestly, the unrated versions easily anything Zack Snyder has that's unrated or extended is automatically better than the original.
Yeah, his director's cuts are every time better than the theatrical cut of the movie.
Yeah, just because they have a couple extra scenes and a little bit pieces of dialogue that just really they just add more to the story. Even though if they're on a small scale, like maybe a few seconds, it still adds a little more that makes you think, "Oh man, I wish I could have seen that before, just to kind of get a wholesome picture of everything. But
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was this the first movie that had fast zombies?
ooh,
Because it was either between this one and 28 Days Later, right?
yeah, I'm gonna say, ooh, I think which, depending on which one came out first, I'm probably gonna say at least this is definitely one of the ones that has fast zombies, and that just makes it even scarier. The fact that zombies are, besides that, I'm gonna say The Walking Dead. Actually, I think nailed down zombie mythology the best, where they're just literally just corpses walking and feasting whenever they can. But this one was just they are hungry. They will get after you however they can. They do almost like World War Z. World War Z was a little too
It was a little
sci-fi
too
about,
much.
yeah, a
It was
little.
still a pretty decent movie, but yeah, it was a little too much.
It was Brad Pitt's hair. I couldn't do it. He can't pull that off.
His
Not in
hair's
that movie, at least.
magnificent, so luscious, so
Not
golden.
not in that movie. He looked like a retired geometry professor. It's not good.
Take that scarf off. Who are you trying to fool?
But yeah, that's well. I guess we knocked both of our first ones out. Dawn of the
Yeah,
Dead.
I will say that you did it for the both of us, man. I agree. Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite, and yeah, 28 Days Later came out in 2002, so just a couple years before. So this
And
was like the renaissance of the zombies genre, I would say, with 28 Days Later and Dawn of the Dead, where we see them now as like more feral and quick, and they're not just the slow droning zombies that we've seen in the past. They're something different and something I would say a little scarier.
yeah, especially in movies. I know video games and other sorts of entertainment can have different zombies, but this is definitely one of those ones that really just made them terrifying. But let's keep going. So again, if anyone has seen Dawn of the Dead, please watch the unrated version. Also, if another movie, maybe if you haven't seen this but are thinking about it, definitely check out I Am Legend as well with Will Smith that came out in 2007. Just because again, that's one of my favorite movies, but not necessarily a horror movie specifically. It's more of a sci-fi apocalyptic film.
Yeah, and then I'd also throw in 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later too, if you're just in that mood for the zombie stuff.
Yes, those are I finally saw 28 Days Later like years ago, just thinking, what is the hype behind this? And wow, it was solid. I just need to watch 28 Weeks Later because I know that's supposed to be a really solid sequel, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. The beginning of that movie is actually super crazy. So if you're not hooked by that, then they might not be the movie for you.
Speaking of horror sequels, let me just jump into this one just because while I'm thinking about it. My other one, this is not so much on the older side, but it is just one of my favorite slasher films. It's Halloween of 2018, written by the it's hard to say because it's so crazy by Danny McBride.
When I heard that Danny McBride and what was his partner's name? Seth Gordon Green, or is it Seth Graham Smith? I don't remember the director's name, but they're frequent collaborators on the shows that they've done in the past, like Vice Principals, which we've talked about before, and then the Righteous Gemstones, and oh man, what was that other HBO show they did where he's like the baseball player?
Oh, that's oh my god, now I'm blanking on it. But his name was I can't think of it right now. But you got me with that one, and you were close. It is David Gordon Green that helped him write
David Gordon
Halloween.
Green, there he is. I don't know
There's
what I
a
got Seth
Green,
from. Maybe I was thinking Seth Rogen.
just because they are in a lot of things together. But yeah, I just remember seeing that just because my actually before I keep going, who would you say are your favorite serial killer slasher characters in horror? Like, can you what do you like?
I mean, the top of my list is obviously Michael Myers.
That's the thing. I never cared about Michael Myers that much until this movie. I'm
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
because I'm more of a Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, Jason.
Jason.
Those are my actually. I'm gonna pass Jason. I'm gonna tie Jason and Freddy Krueger because they're very similar to me, especially after Freddy versus Jason. But I'm gonna put it's gonna be them and then the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Those are my top few
Okay.
favorite monsters slash slashers, just because they're terrifying and just weird as hell.
So you wouldn't put Ghostface up there from Scream?
Damn it, I
In
forgot about Ghostface. You know what? I'm gonna add him too. Top five. That's five right there. But I'm leaving an odd number there.
Excellent.
I do love Ghostface. He's very simple, but I love the Scream franchise. I love how they blend horror and they're commenting on films as well. So it's a double whammy.
Oh yeah, just to have a commentary on the horror genre while also being a horror movie itself. It's just meta and awesome at the same time.
Exactly. But like I said, when I first sat down to watch Halloween a couple years ago, or when I first heard about it, like you said, like Danny McBride's writing a horror movie, is it even going to be good, or is it going to be some stupid comedy horror? Just because comedy horror is not bad. Like we have What We Do in the Shadows and
Zombieland, I would say.
Zombieland's another one, and they're both fantastic. Easily some of the best horror comedies out there, if not the best. But it's also like I was worried that it would go more along the lines of like Scary Movie. Like it's stupid, but it's not good by many means, if any means at all.
Yeah, yeah,
It,
that's what I was worried about too. It being more parody than an actual horror movie, which would be a shame, especially for the Michael Myers and the Halloween genre of
but the beginning scene of that whole movie where it's just those two podcasters, those like true crime podcasters,
yeah, true crime podcasts.
they go to see Michael Myers after the first one. And I like that this movie actually pulled off the direct sequel, even though it was like 20 years later or something like that. And it pulled it off
Yeah,
really well. And just that first scene where he brings out the mask and all the other patients, asylum patients, start freaking out because even they sense that it's pure evil rising from that body. And it just it that hooked me in immediately. So
yeah, it was a really good entry into the Halloween films, which kind of overstayed their welcome, I would say, with the original sequels, Halloween 2, and then, oh man, how many sequels were there up to that point? There was just like way too many, and just like, again, it just overstayed its welcome, which I would say a lot of horror movies do. It's not something that's unique to the Halloween movies, but this one actually being like, okay, we're going to be a sequel to the first movie, which everyone universally loved, and we're going to just pick off from there and take the baton from there in a whole new story. Catching up with Laurie 30 years later. It was a really interesting way of getting into that world again and presenting it in a new and refreshing way. And just to see how, the events of a horror film affect the characters in the movie, years and years later. It's a really pretty cool idea that they went with, and I'm glad that they did because the movie was awesome for it.
yeah, and again, because that's becoming the trend with a lot of movies like Mad Max Fury Road. Even though that's not necessarily a direct sequel, it's still a sequel that took place many years after those movies were ever like premiered or anything like that. Jurassic World was a pretty successful direct sequel film. But this one just hit home for me because again, I never was really scared of Michael Myers. I didn't really watch all his movies. The only one I really grew up watching was the one with Tyra Banks in it, and I forgot the other rapper that was in it. But
Oh man, was it? It wasn't Ja Rule, was it?
no, 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 definitely not Ja Rule. It was. It's gonna hit me later. I know
I'm
that,
trying
but
to remember. Oh man, it's right there, but yeah, like I can't think of it right now.
so I never really cared for it that much, to be honest. And again, just that opening scene really got me. And the fact that Laurie Strode embraced her fear and just became, given a paranoid, not schizophrenic, but paranoid sociopath. But she was just a total badass. I love, like, she lives in a house in the middle of nowhere and just a total like gunsmith of her own means. I just remember my friend sitting in the theater because I'm a bit of a firearms enthusiast, and he's just like, "Oh, that would be you in a few years." I thought, well, thank you, sort of, because I don't want to be a paranoid person in the middle of the woods. But I just loved her gun collection and the fact, again, it's the idea that. Well, a lot of horror movies, when somebody gets attacked, and in real life, it's totally understandable after you experience something traumatic that it may break you down. You may have struggled living. And after the first one in 1978, where she was just a teenager, essentially, and her friends got butchered in front of her. She barely survived a serial killer. That she just, again, it's just the idea that she didn't let that fear break her down. That it built her up into this, just a warrior, a modern day warrior essentially. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean that is one way to interpret it. Another way is just the trauma of the events just broke her as a person. Just she she like she became, like you said, very paranoid, reclusive. Have started building up her own firearms and her own weaponry, and kind of pushed her own daughter away too. So I liked how it took like kind of a realistic approach to, like you said, someone who survived such a horrific event a long time ago. That all they dedicate themselves to now is to never be a victim of that situation again.
yeah, it really shows that. Again, I know I say modern day warrior, and I'm praising her as a badass, but in all reality, she is a monster of her own in this movie. But again, it's just the idea that she's ready to fight back. And Michael Myers is one of those killers that just is unstoppable. You
Oh
you
yeah, an unstoppable force by every definition.
So I don't want to spoil it for anybody else, but like I said, it came out 2 years ago, 28 October of 2018. So please, please check out that one, and even the original John Carpenter's Halloween. I actually got to go see that in theaters a few years ago, which it wasn't really scary, but it was just fun seeing that in a theater again. Just kind of a throwback to that.
Yeah, didn't you and I go watch that movie together? The Halloween for your birthday or something, right?
Yes, yes, that is my tradition of seeing a movie on my birthday. But yeah,
Oh
that was one of my
gosh.
favorite birthday movies. You know what? Don't complain.
No, dude, you just have to put me through that for your birthday. Just on the one of the biggest screens in what we saw, like in the Dolby theater. Oh man, just the sound design, the screen. I was just like, why am I here? Why did I agree to this?
I do miss the Dolby Theater, and that's when AMC A-List started too that year. So it was definitely worth it.
Oh yeah, it was. It was a great time. Great movie too, and y'all should definitely check it out.
But let me toss it to you. What you got for me, Bern? What's a really good horror movie that gets you in the mood for Halloween?
Oh man, well you know what? Since we're on the John Carpenter train right now, I say we stay on for a little bit longer, and with my recommendation of 1982's The Thing.
That was on mine too.
Yes, the synergy continues.
And you showed me that movie 2 years ago as well, which I've heard about the movie. I've seen bits of it on TV, but I've never sat down and actually watched the original. So that was a real treat.
Oh yeah, you're welcome for sure. So for those of you that don't know, if you haven't heard already, I mean, which is like this movie came out in '82, so I would hope you have at least at some point. But
It's
this
one of the
movie,
pop culture movies. You better freaking know it. If you don't, then you're just living under a rock or
uh,
maybe super educated. I don't know.
it is one of the best, if not the best, monster movies of all time. It takes place in like some remote research station in Antarctica, and a group of people that are working there are, oh man, how do I even describe it? Just like an alien from outer space, a shape-shifting alien, all never referred to by any name. We just know it as the Thing. It starts to integrate itself into their ranks, and it just becomes this whole thing of paranoia because you don't know if it's killed someone and assume their identity. Everyone's just so paranoid. Like the biggest thing of this movie is just the paranoia surrounding it, where characters aren't sure of who's who and who's what, and if they're infected or if they're not infected. Especially when this thing starts offering them one by one, it's fantastic. The Oh man, just the practical monster effects that are in display in this movie for now, for 2020, would be incredible. This was done in 1982. It's insane to me how they pull that stuff off. If you've seen the movie, you know. If you haven't, you will definitely find out and think the same thing. How were they able to pull that off? It's insane.
It really was. That's what got me when I first saw it, thinking because when I watched it, I thought, cool, I'm finally gonna watch this. Like it has decent ratings on. I do follow Rotten Tomatoes, so that's where I saw that. And yeah, I figured it's gonna be a cheesy horror movie that it's gonna be good, but it's gonna have all those cheesy effects. I was super wrong. Like Byrne said, this is almost 40 years later, and this movie still holds up. It doesn't matter compared to even some of the horror movies today that have really great effects. This one is easily one of the best effect movies you will ever see in your life. So
Yep, the practical effects here, like, are better than some of the CGI effects now. It's so crazy.
yeah, even I actually recently watched the prequel to it on HBO Max, and it wasn't bad. I like the cast because I have a huge crush on Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's always one of my scream queens,
Yes.
and I love Joel Edgerton. But the movie just was not. It didn't hit the same. It was a little too much CGI, and it's hard to do it. Given CGI is a lot easier to use, and like yes and no. It's a lot easier to use, but it's very difficult to really pull it off. And the prequel
Yeah,
just
to
does
make it
not.
really convincing.
Yeah, the prequel just does not reach that standard that the original one has. It has Kurt Russell in it. I think that's another reason why you should watch it.
Yeah, Kurt Russell and all his amazingness, working with John Carpenter. He did, The Thing with it. He did Big Trouble in Little China with John Carpenter. So, they have a couple of movies together, which you can tell that they really enjoyed working with each other. And Kurt Russell's fantastic in this movie. And Keith David is also in this movie, someone who's a little lesser known, but I'm sure you'll recognize his voice when you hear it. He was the voice of Spawn in the original Spawn HBO series, and he's Spawn in the Mortal Kombat game. And he's done a lot of things in like Call of Duty and stuff. So
And
I
it's
think,
Goliath from Gargoyles. Let's not
yes,
skip over that before we continue.
I was building to that.
You slow your roll, sir.
But yeah, I mean, besides those two, the casts are relative, just I think complete unknowns. Like I didn't recognize anybody else, which again just adds to the paranoia factor of you're trying to survive out in this remote research facility in Antarctica where there's nothing for miles and miles and miles, and you know that there's a creature in there with you, and it can be anyone. It's just so crazy. Oh, and one of the things I do want to mention about the prequel movie that came out a few years ago, which you were saying wasn't great because of the CGI. The most unfortunate thing about that is that they actually did have practical effects for that movie, but
Did
they
they?
decided to go over it with
Oh
CGI,
no,
and
they
I think
should have just
that was a huge mistake.
no, they should have kept the practical. Even if it wasn't great, I'd rather have practical just to kind of pay homage to Carpenter's original film. And just to kind of keep that just to keep that aesthetic a little bit. But before we go on, yeah, the paranoia factor that this movie has on its surface, it's a simple just survival film of an alien, killing your workers and stuff like that. But beneath that, there's so much more to it. Just the trust factor, paranoia, and how it really becomes more of a psychotic thriller, like a very mental movie to make you think, is that true? Because then even I started questioning, like, wait, hold on, let's retrace these steps. Like I really got into it that way instead of just being
Yeah,
horror. It was more of like just a psychological thriller.
yeah, where you're like, wait, was this character there when this happened, or you're there along with the people, just like questioning everyone and where they were at what point and when this thing happened and when this happened. Where was there? You're trying to account for like if this person was there or did this person go missing? You're right there in it with them, and it's just such a good directing job by John Carpenter to put you in the moment with all those guys.
Yes, again, I'm so thankful I finally got to see that film, and it's been one of my favorite horror movies since. So that is a fantastic recommendation, and that's definitely not far from over on our list. So, like Bern and I said, please, please, please watch the original Thing, or not, maybe not the original. That one came out
In
even
like
like
the 50s or something.
yeah, so not the '50s one, but John Carpenter's from 1982. Please go watch
Yes,
it.
check that one out for sure.
You got another one, or should I take the ball back?
Let me just get one more, and we'll go from the isolation of a remote research facility in Antarctica and go into the isolation of space itself with 1979's Alien.
As soon as you said space, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be Alien. That's a great one too.
Just in space, no one can hear you scream. Oh my God!
That's a really great line though.
It's
As
such a
much
great tagline.
honestly, if I saw that today on a poster or something, I thought cheesy, but I like that just because if you really think about it, Scream, no one really could hear you scream, so that makes it even worse.
Yeah, in the vacuum of space, is just you're on your own, and
It's
that's
not,
pretty terrifying.
yeah, it's not Star Wars. We don't hear everything or explosions all the time, so.
Unfortunately, no, we do not. Not in this universe.
And that was just easily Sigourney Weaver's like biggest pop culture character. Like
Yeah, her breakout role, I would say.
that was just again another film that utilized practical effects, especially at the time. And we say practical effects like they're old school, prosthetics and suits. Because there are some
Yeah.
movies that like a lot of movies back then, especially in the 80s and 90s before like computer generated imagery, CGI really became prominent. They use either claymation or some sort of other artistry, but the prosthetics on a lot of these films really just set the tone, like The Thing did.
Oh yeah.
Alien was another one.
Oh yeah. The '70s and the '80s were like the golden era of practical effects with the stuff that they were able to pull off back in the day. It's just, people got so creative, and I don't think they're praised enough today for the work that they did.
Honestly, no, but it's practical effects like that that really got me into that sci-fi show Face Off. Do you remember that one? Did you ever watch that?
Oh, I remember you showing me a few episodes when we were rooming together, like the visual like makeup, right? The show where they would like do I guess it was just like a challenge for them to do different sorts of makeup for like I guess is in a way as a competition, right?
Yeah, so it basically would just be individual artists or even teams that just make their own prosthetic monster, like prosthetic suits and prosthetics for, models to wear for a certain theme. Like one of them I remember was Tim Burton or like not Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland themed, and there's a lot of cool things to that show, and it's just that another thing that really makes me respect the hell out of makeup and prosthetic artists. That is not easy. Sometimes they have to think outside the
Yeah.
box, and The Thing and Alien are definitely some of those movies that really exemplify how hard they work and how ingenious they can be because it really produced stuff that just you will never forget after you watch them.
Oh yeah, just the alien from the movie Alien, the xenomorph as it's known, just is so iconic nowadays. Like you can automatically see that and say, "Oh, that's Alien. That's Alien from Aliens."
Yeah, exactly. It's just so iconic, and again, like I said, they'll be scarred into your mind a little bit, especially the xenomorph, because how much influence it took from like biomechanical kind of like gothic looks. It's hard to describe, but once you see it, you'll get what I mean.
Yeah, just for those of you that are interested, look up the work of H.R. Geiger. He's like the one that did the concepts for all these movies, and it's a next level version of horror that I don't think I've seen in anything else except for these movies in particular. Just how oh man, it's just so slimy and gross, and just like the body horror is ridiculous. Like ooh, it just makes my skin crawl thinking about it.
Oh man, I'm right there with you. That's a great one, and I respect that choice. I definitely would be in the mood for some scary stuff on Halloween with that movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then for those of you that don't know what it's about, essentially it's just this commercial space vessel gets a distress signal from a nearby moon that they're passing by, and they answer the call and they find not no one survived, so they didn't find anyone there except one of the crew members gets infected by something, and just it just goes all downhill from there. Is the only way that we can really describe it.
Exactly. Without giving away too much, just take it at that. That these people stumble upon something they shouldn't have stumbled on in space, and they definitely pay the price for it. So,
Yep.
especially
Trapped.
if you've seen Prometheus or Alien Covenant, those are definitely prequels to this. They're not bad. They're pretty solid sci-fi films, but again, nothing can compare to just the original Alien, especially with
Yeah.
young Sigourney Weaver, one of her first biggest roles ever.
Yeah. In terms of stripped down, just straight up horror, sci-fi horror, the first Alien movie takes it by a long shot. But the second movie, Aliens, is in a whole other league of its own. As an action, as sci-fi horror action movie.
It's definitely a multi-genre movie, multi-genre film compared to the first one. So
Yes.
we won't talk about that one. It's definitely not as horror, themed.
Yeah,
It's
no,
got some cool
definitely not.
moments. It's got
Hmm.
great practical effects and cool moments, but it's just not necessarily horror filled.
Yeah. So when people say, which one do you like more than the other, it's really hard to compare because they're just so different types of movies.
Oh man, now I'm kind of actually down to really watch Alien right now, but we'll we'll have to let the people decide.
That's what these tests are for.
Do you mind if I take it from here, Bern? Because there are a
Go
couple
ahead, man.
movies. Speaking on the whole practical effects train, there are definitely two I really want to get out of the way, and that got me really excited. The first one I'm going to start off with was Michael Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's famous vampire movie, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Ah, yes, the Roberto Rodriguez and the Quentin Tarantinos. So great.
It's it's such an out there movie just because George Clooney has.
Not a classic pick, I would say. They're definitely like a different pick, but it deserves to be in that conversation, I would say.
I absolutely, because again, I'm into a lot of horror stuff, especially folklore when it comes to vampires, werewolves, and all that good stuff. And this is definitely one of those movies that if you love vampires and all that horror stuff like I do, this is the movie to watch. Because yes, there's movies like Underworld and Twilight, and even again What We Do in the Shadows, where vampires are depicted as just average Joes with fangs or beautiful people. This is definitely the opposite of that.
There's no sparkly vampires in this one, that's for sure.
No, and basically, for those of you who've never seen this, or maybe you don't know too much about it, George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino are these brothers who just robbed, who are serial robbers and actually serial killers. Quentin Tarantino is the murderer of them specifically, and it's so weird to see George Clooney curse so much and be so like out there with a tribal tattoo. It's
Yeah,
like okay,
very different.
it's
Very
like
different George
okay,
Clooney.
I can dig it. He's got the short gray hair. Like he always rocks that silver fox look. I don't know how, but he's got the face for it. But basically, after they I think bust out of jail or something like that, they're supposed to rendezvous with this drug lord or this guy who has their money in Mexico at a strip bar called the Titty Twister. And in doing so, they hijack Harvey Keitel, the amazing Harvey Keitel.
Oh
Easily
yeah,
one of the best actors ever,
he's so
and
good.
and a young Juliette Lewis, which is so crazy to see her in that because it's just like she hasn't aged much, but it's so crazy to see her so young in that one.
Yep.
And they hijack this family of three and take their motor coach all the way down to Mexico, in which they find that strip club bar just filled with vampires. And it goes from there, just a whole night of survival and blood and death. And why I love it so much, not only because of the cast, like Danny Trejo, uh, oh my God, Cheech Marin and Harvey Keitel, George Clooney, Quentin Tarantino, everyone's so great in it that they're all their little characters. Cheech Marin actually plays three different characters, so it's hilarious to see him just
I forgot that's right, he does.
play several people. And Danny Trejo is such a badass in it. So, and again, George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino, again, surprisingly badass characters in this. And but really, what is the best part of this is just the vampires. You also have the always gorgeous, phenomenally just fantastic actress Salma Hayek, where
Oh yeah, incredible.
she is easily one of the best parts, and actually one of the biggest parts in all of like
Yeah.
horror films. Just one of the sexiest actresses ever, where
Yeah.
she does a dance with a snake, and she's known as Santanico Pandemonio. Like just, ugh, I can't get over it. But
It's just
her,
such an iconic scene.
it really is just because it's so sensual, so beautiful, and just again sexy as all hell. But then after that, it just
Yeah. And then just right after that.
complete 360 out of
Uh-huh.
there. And what was great is that as I was why this movie I thought about prosthetics is because each vampire has such a unique look to it, And yes, there were some CGI effects when they change into vampires, but for the most part, it is all prosthetic perfection. Just beautiful, really gross and creepy vampires.
Terrifying.
Yes, especially Salma Hayek's because hers, I'm just gonna just say this one. It's hard to describe, but she's very much like a king cobra as a vampire. And I know that sounds a little weird, but honestly, once you see it, you'll get exactly what I mean.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's oh man. Again, this is just like such a pick that I wouldn't think of, but like I said, it just belongs in the conversation just for the fact that the movie just takes such a turn. Like the way that it starts off for the first like act, and you're thinking, okay, this is just like a heist movie. This is these guys on the run, and this is what the story's gonna be. And then to just have that complete switch, like right there in the bar, it's fantastic. I can't imagine what it was like for people going into this movie at the time. I wonder if like I don't know, did they know ahead of time or was it just like a secret that no one really knew? I really wonder how it was to watch this movie in the theater not knowing about what's going to happen next because the movie takes such a drastic turn and you're just like completely blown away by how they were able to pull it off because you would think it wouldn't work, but it absolutely does work.
Yes, again, it's just such a fun movie, and Todd Savini is easily one of my favorite makeup artists in the industry. He's created so many classic monsters and prosthetics that you'll know when you see his work that he is easily one of the best in the business, and he plays a stupid character named Sex Machine in it, where he has the infamous penis gun that just busts out of like a belt, and it's got like two little cylinders as his nuts and a revolver as his his phallus. So it's oh my god, that's one I have to recommend. Would you agree with that recommendation, Bern?
Absolutely. Like I said, 100% agree. Again, just I can't say it enough. Just that the fact that this movie is, again, probably not on someone's, top five recommendations for Halloween, but like I said, it deserves to be in that conversation just because the way it's pulled off, just the execution of the movie is absolutely really, really well done. And it deserves all the praise it gets.
Yes. So if you want something scary, gory, action packed, and
Funny
downright
too.
funny, yeah,
It's got
go
everything.
go see this one. Now another one I want to talk about as well. I'm gonna save my other two for after this. I swear we're almost done. Uh, is Trick or Treat.
Oh yes, yes. I actually didn't see that movie until I think you showed me like a few years ago.
Honestly, I feel like it went under the radar for so long, and then when in recent years, especially because it was Horror Nights themed 2 years ago, that it really became a kind of a much more like within pop culture, like it's much more popular just because the little character you'll see around this time of year is Sam, where he's just that little kid in the orange little pajama looking suit with a big old round burlap sack of a head, like a pumpkin scarecrow
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy. He is essentially, I would describe him as a god or a angel of Halloween, where this movie Trick or Treat is basically almost like the Pulp Fiction of horror films, where it's several stories that coincide with each other at certain points in the movie. Like the characters meet each other or run into each other, but they don't know anything about each other. And just four stories of just, or not four, but several stories of just how each people does their own tradition of Halloween, and you don't break the rules of Halloween, or else Sam, that little, the little, again, I guess, a angel of death of Halloween, he will come find you. And
Yeah, just the spirit of Halloween exists within that little kid.
it's so crazy just because he's the one factor that's just present in all those stories and the whole film. And again, it's got such a great cast too, like Anna Paquin. Who is Doc? Who is the doctor from Spider-Man 2, the one who becomes a lizard? What's Doc Connors? Who is that? Who's that guy's name? Do you know off the top of your head?
Rice Evans or something like that.
Yeah, he plays a principal in that movie, and oh, remind me, who's the guy
Oh
from
wait, are you talking? Wait, hold on. The Amazing Spider-Man or from Spider-Man 2, the Raimi one?
Spider-Man 2?
Oh, I don't know that actor's name.
Damn it, me neither, but I really liked him in this movie. And then who's the guy from Super Troopers and The Ring and Troy? He's always the heavyset guy who can do comedy, but he's also been in really messed up movies. He was also in the Bourne movies too. I gotta look it up real quick because it's gonna bother me.
What's his name? Oh, Brian Cox,
Yes, thank you.
right? He was Stryker in X2, right?
X2. Yes,
Stryker. That's
he's
how
like
I just remember him by for some reason.
it's such a simple name. I can't believe I forgot. But yes, Brian Cox. Like it has several great actors in each of these stories, and it's just a lot of fun to watch, in my opinion. Michael Dougherty, who did this movie, and Krampus, he's easily another one of my favorite practical effects, guys out there. That he knows how to work horror and create these animatronics and prosthetics that just really stand out. So yeah, this is definitely one to check out, especially if you're in the mood for Halloween. You kind of want to see another side of it, like maybe a little more. Uh, how do I put it? I guess I would just say if you want more importance to Halloween instead of just trick or treating and scary stuff, this one actually provides like a sense of culture behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this movie is very much about I guess the spirit of Halloween. The actual day and event itself. It really brings a lot of mythology into it, and acknowledges just everything that goes into it being Halloween, which is pretty cool for a horror movie to acknowledge. Just I guess just all the spirit and everything that really goes into it being the holiday that it is. It's pretty cool, and it's really just a celebration of the day itself.
Absolutely. But I'm gonna pass it back to you. What else you got for me nearing the end of our episode?
All right, cool. So nearing the end of the episode, one of my last two I will give you is The Witch, 2016's The Witch movie.
It's a bold choice, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him.
I just really enjoyed this movie because, I mean, as I talked about in our last discussion about how I was kind of really growing tired of just the whole pop culture aspect of things that are surrounding just the witch itself, just what it has become. It's just hasn't been as scary as I think it used to be. And with this movie, it strips all that away and takes it back to just like its origin of it just being a creepy old hag that haunts people from the woods. I mean, if you don't know, if you haven't heard of it, this is 2015. Yeah, 2015's the movie The Witch. Robert Eggers directed, who's quickly becoming one of my favorite directors now, even with only directing, I think this was his first, and The Lighthouse would be his second, if I'm correct in that. But
That sounds
the
about right.
yeah, I don't really remember if he's done anything else, but man, just the movie, just the whole concept of it taking place back in the 1600s, and back in the early colonial era of in the United States and New England, and how just this family of like farmers is being tormented by a witch in the woods. It, like I said, it strips everything, all the preconceived notions you have of what a witch should be because of pop culture, and it really takes it back to like its original mythic origins.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, going into it, I expected a little more horror, but in the end, it was much more of a suspenseful thriller, which isn't a bad thing either, because it really does pull the tension building until the very end.
Oh yeah,
And it was one of my first movie. I think it was my first movie ever seeing Anya Taylor-Joy really show her stuff. After that, like,
yeah,
wow, what an actress! Let's keep seeing, keep getting parts, please, because you.
yeah. A star-making performance for her for sure.
And yes, exactly. That it really just did create the idea that witches are deemed evil because they sold their soul to the devil in order to gain some sort of power over people or the earth, whatever means they can. And this one just really is messed up. There's not a whole lot of blood and guts to it, but it is just messed up. I can't say that enough.
Yeah, the best way to describe it would be just the movie has this feeling of evil. It's hard to shake because, like you said, not a lot really happens in the movie in terms of straight up horror like slashing, things getting killed. It's just this constant buildup of tension and of atmosphere and of just these characters really slowly losing their minds over time. It just really wrenches everything out of you. And by the end of the movie, you're just like, wow, what did I just watch?
Honestly, another thing I kind of liked about it was that, okay, I never want to see the main characters suffer terribly, especially because Anya Taylor-Joy and her family,
Uh-huh.
they were just, well, her for sure, she was like an innocent character, and it was just the family was so strict on religion that it really is just the Puritan age where it's just they were deemed too religious by their own community, so they tried to start their own. And in a way,
Yeah.
it just goes to show that, I mean, one cynical way to look at it is that religion can get you killed. I mean, don't quote me on that. I'm just saying, like, it's just like
It could be an interpretation of it.
I think it was just the thing that they were so obsessed with, you know, religion and Christianity that they thought they were being good people. And it's like another way was that the witch is just living her life, and you invaded her land essentially. So she was just doing her devil given right to wreak havoc on your family. So it's just one of those things of like just the ever growing evil within people, and just what really pushes them to do. So I think that's why I really love The Witch.
Yeah, it's completely twisted in almost every way. Where like yeah, exactly like you said, just you can come at it from as nice of a perspective you want, wanting to do religious good and all that, but there's just those forces out there that will twist it until it becomes a rotten version of itself.
Absolutely. So that is a good choice. I remember a couple of people didn't like it because it was a period piece and maybe it was a little slow, which it has its slow moments, but honestly,
Yeah,
it's
I should. Yeah, I should definitely say that. Yeah, it is very much it works as a period movie. Like the people, or back in the 1630s, they talked a certain way, and the characters in this movie talk that way, which is I would say one of the positives because Robert Eggers, when asked about it, he says that he considers himself more of a researcher than a filmmaker because he really likes to throw himself into the research of the scripts that he's going to write. And you can tell almost right away that a lot of research went into making this movie as authentic to the time as it is.
honestly, I would agree with that. This movie really definitely showed that he put a lot of work into, like, it just everything felt authentic. It didn't feel that this wouldn't, I don't know, because I don't know too much about the those olden days of the colonies and stuff like that, how people lived. But honestly, this movie definitely painted a bleak picture of it and how it really could have been,
Oh,
especially on
yeah.
the East Coast.
Very bleak picture for sure.
So, yeah, I really like that suggestion a lot. Thank you for bringing that one up.
Yeah, definitely. And as my last suggestion, I'm going to go to a little more popular one that probably people have already seen, but I'm going to throw it in there anyways. The first Conjuring movie.
Okay. I like that's easily again one of my favorites. I remember that one in the theater scared the bejesus out of me.
Oh my gosh, to this day, one of my favorite movie going experiences that I've ever like been a part of. I went to go see it with a couple friends opening night, one of the first rated R movies I was able to go see. And I just remember I just remember being in the theater and having this real like community experience where everybody, you can just feel it in the whole room. Everyone was so into it. People jumped and at the scary parts, people were just like commenting like, "Oh hell no," just things like that. And I just remember definitively the image that sticks into my mind was during a particularly tense scene. I looked over to my right, and a few seats down from me, there's this guy, this full-grown man, it was this big dude, just laying back in his chair with like it looked like a towel just covering his face completely.
Oh man, honestly, there was a one specific scene. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody who wants to watch this or hasn't seen it, but That one, I just remember literally yelling, "Oh shit!" and just like freaking out. It was, oh my god, just it was such a solid. That's definitely one of those modern classic horrors within the last like 10 years that just
Yeah.
that it was so well made and so well positively received by everyone, because a lot of horror movies have cult followings where they're really bad at first and then they become really great. This one was just really great right out of the gate.
Yeah, this was one that just hit the ground running from the beginning. James Wan is such a master of horror, just how like again it's like conducting a scene, just setting everything up, putting a character here, having this happen in the background where you notice it but the character doesn't notice it, and it just creates this tension where you're like, oh no, something's gonna happen, and then it doesn't happen or it does happen. It's such a good like dance with the audience that he puts you through in these horror movies, and the two Conjuring movies that he's done, and with other movies that he's done, like Saw and Insidious. So James
And
Wan definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to horror.
Insidious especially, because there are a couple things that unless you notice it off the bat, there are some things when you rewatch it, you're like, oh shit, I missed that. This is creepy as hell. So yeah, that's, oh man, James Wan is amazing, and that is easily one of the best horror movies of late. So
Oh yeah,
that is a
yeah.
great way to end your recommendations, Bern.
Oh, thank you. Let me just curtsy, just a little bow for the fans.
Just the kisses and just mwah,
Mhm.
mwah.
I'll do the Michael Scott, spin and then finger guns.
Stupid. But in that case, do you mind if I finish this off? Let's.
Take it away.
Okay, so the second to last one is going to be another recent movie within the last, I'm going to say, 4 years, is going to be The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, I've heard of it. I have not seen it actually though.
So this one came out, I want to say, like I said, let me double check my that before I continue. But is oh, speaking of just witches and witchcraft, this is a movie that just makes it just I don't know, just it's actually it was scary. It's easily one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, and I watched it in the comfort of my own home
Oh wow.
because it's just such a haunting thing to me that like basically what the movie is about is that Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox, again, hilarious and
Great
amazing,
actor.
that they're a father and son who run a I guess a mortuary where essentially, they work with the CSI teams and stuff to help figure out what the cause of death were
Uh-huh.
for
So they're
bodies and stuff
they're
like
like
that.
coroners then?
Yeah, essentially, I guess it's like a moratorium kind of thing. I'm not 1,000% sure, but basically what happens is that they're working one night. The son has plans with his girlfriend, and what happens is they get sent this body that was found in a burnt house, but her body is of a beautiful young woman, perfectly fine on the outside. No bruises, no cuts, no nothing. But then
Oh,
when they start, excavating her, or what's the term I'm looking for? Um
they're
uh,
doing an autopsy.
yeah, when they're conducting the autopsy on this body, they're finding so many terrible things. Like her lungs are burnt to shit. She has broken bones everywhere, and just so much trauma inside that they're thinking, what the hell happened? And it's like the body is so much older than what it was. That because the body easily looks like she could have been in her mid 20s, late like early 30s. So she's a young, beautiful girl, but her body says her insides say otherwise. And the
Uh-huh.
more they conduct the autopsy, just the more creepy things happen within their moratorium, and it's just it's one of those things that they shouldn't have, that it was just wrong place wrong time kind of situations.
Oh no. That sounds
So
pretty crazy.
yeah, it's so well done. It's directed by Andre Overdahl. I think I'm saying that movie right, but that name right. I apologize if I'm not. But it was an IFC midnight film, and again, yeah, it came out in 2016 and was such an under the radar film that, like I said, I rented it. I put on Netflix for my friend and his fiance last year during a rainy night, and leaving their house because my I had to park my car down the street. I was paranoid. Just like I don't want to see something behind me when I go to my car, kind of thing. I was just
Oh
it,
man, yeah, like those moments where after you watch a scary movie and then you're driving home, you're like, I don't want to look at the rear view mirror because I think something's gonna be back there.
that no joke. That is exactly what I thought when that movie created that fear in me, and that's why that's I have to recommend it for Halloween and any horror enthusiast. It's
Damn.
definitely one you can't miss.
Oh man, I need to check that out now. That
You
sounds
de-
pretty crazy.
you definitely should, and if you really want to scare, watch it with the lights off, exactly how I did it late at night.
Oh no, I'm watching this, 12 p.m., middle of the day, with all the lights are on, all the windows are. I don't want to get. I want to sleep at night.
Well, I completely understand.
Oh
I'm sorry.
man, are you okay?
Allergies are hitting me. Anyways,
Oh no. Mhm.
and my last one is my ultimate all-time favorite horror movie, which is An American Werewolf in London.
I was wondering when you were gonna put that in there. I was waiting for it. I was just waiting for that one.
I almost didn't, but then I thought about it, I'm like, no, this is definitely making my list. Like this is definitely a movie I watch every year without fail. In the last week or the whole month of October, I'll put it on repeat.
Hmm.
It it is just one of the it's a John Landis film, came out in 1981, and the actors I have no idea who they are. I've never seen them in anything else before, never heard of them until that movie. But okay, so for those of you who don't know, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've seen it before somewhere, but this one's about two young backpackers, Americans, who are just trying to enjoy the English countryside when they happen to come across this tavern, this pub in the middle of this small English town. And, obviously they make themselves awkward just being kind of like an ugly, ignorant American without, not necessarily on purpose, but they just kind of came off that way to these guys, and they were told stay off the moors, keep to the roads, and beware the full moon. And little do you know it, right after they leave that pub, it's a full moon out. They wander into the moors, and you
Uh-huh.
hear and you hear just I remember I saw it on Netflix in college, that the howl alone scared me. I've never heard of something like that before, and it was just something
Oh yeah.
so iconic that it's just like, what the hell am I listening to? And I just remember thinking about it the first time. I was like, what? I just remember sitting in my room like, what the fuck is happening right now? What is out there? Like I know it's in the title, but I'm just thinking, what kind of creature? What is this thing gonna look like? And it
Yeah.
was
It
just
sounds so creepy.
it definitely sounds inhuman. And again, this is another easily one of the best practical effects horror movies out there. It
Oh
still
yeah.
holds up after almost 40 years. Like I can't praise it enough for that. It's also a bit of a comedy too because it has some funny moments, but it's such a also psychological thriller just because what happens with the main character after, his this attack, this confrontation with the werewolf, it's really just a movie of its own. Just it's hard to really compare it, especially to, again, movies like Underworld, or maybe movies like Ginger Snaps or stuff like that, where werewolves are definitely just more of creatures of the night. This one kind of shows what it's like to become a werewolf, essentially. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, it really like shows you without flinching what it would be like in this movie's version of what it would be like to transform into a werewolf. And the transformation scene alone is the stuff of just genius. Like I don't know how to this day I don't know how they pulled that off because it's all done in camera in effect, like right in your face. Like it shows you this person turning into a werewolf. Like I said, I don't know how they pull that off. It's so crazy.
And honestly, it's just horrifying to see. Like, it's definitely not like something badass like Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman. It just made it a horrifying experience of its own. That, I was, as much as I'm like, yeah, I would love to be a werewolf because they're just awesome creatures. Like, this movie changes my mind as every time I watch it.
Oh yeah, absolutely horrifying. I would not want to be a werewolf ever.
And fun fact too, for those of you who don't know, maybe Bern, if you haven't, if you've seen the music video for Thriller, Michael Jackson's song, John Landis actually helped with that. Because he designed the whole, werecat look for Michael Jackson, and that whole transformation and stuff is all taken from this movie.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I did not know that.
So he used his talents for that, and I think that's why I love Thriller so much. Is just because the practical effects he used in that music video, he did in that one, and oh man, it's just American Werewolf in London, my personal favorite. Whether you love it or hate it, I absolutely love it. It puts me in the mood every year for Halloween.
Yeah, and it's one that I never saw for the longest time until you showed it to me. So hats off to you for introducing me to that movie because, man, I was missing out. That movie is crazy.
It was I that one I would kind of be interested in seeing a remake of it, but it would have to be done with the utmost caution and care. That it needs to be as good, if not, succeed that. So
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to top. Definitely.
very difficult, but that'll end it for me with the spooky season coming along. I still have to watch Robert Zemeckis's The Witches on HBO. But another highlight of the end of this month is that The Mandalorian Season 2 premieres, so you can bet your asses we're going to be talking about that as soon as it premieres.
Yes, it's happening. Finally.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Oh man, I can't wait to see what happens with this one, especially after we broke down the trailer last time, like last month. So, it's a big week to end off October, and can't wait for it.
Oh no, I cannot wait. It's gonna be insane. I'm excited.
But that'll do it for me. Let's get some sleep, maybe, or some nightmares, however you want to look at it. And ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys have a splendid Halloween. Whether you spend it with family or friends, please do it safely, and stay bodacious and keep on ranting.
Yeah, let's everybody just keep the horror in the movies. Definitely be safe out there. Tell us, of course, what are your favorite Halloween movies to watch? What are your favorite horror movies? Leave a comment. Let us know because this is the time to do it.
That goes without saying. And also, if you whatever your favorite monster or serial killer is, go ahead and throw it out there. We'll look into it. But until then, you'll be hearing from us about the Mandalorian very soon. We'll reconvene then, good sir.
Absolutely.
All right. Good night, my friend, and what music we shall make with the Mandalorian.
May your nightmares be good.
Indeed. Peace out, bro.
Adios.